All right, welcome everyone. We'll be getting started on our webinar today, Real Devices or Emulators, When to Use What for Automated Mobile App Testing. A few housekeeping rules, just to let people know we have 1,000 people registered for this event this morning, so in the panel of attendees you might not see any numbers at all, but rest assured there are a number of folks attending this event today. We will be recording this, and we'll be sending out a link to the recording to everyone who's attending today. We'll also be posting information and a link to the recording on the SOS blog within the next day or two once we get the recording finalized. We will also be sending everyone a copy of the dimensional research report of the survey results that we'll cover today, so look for that in your mailbox in the very near future as well. And finally, down at the lower right, there's a QA panel probably on your WebEx session. Feel free to enter questions that you have at any time in that panel, and we will try and get to those either while we're speaking or at the end of the event today. So with that, I'd like to introduce our three speakers today. We've got David Gehringer, a principal analyst with Dimensional Research, who led the research into how developers and QA folks use mobile devices and emulators in testing. We have Jack Moxon, who is our product manager for mobile testing here at Sauce Labs, and Abhijit Pendal, who is our solutions engineer at Sauce Labs as well, who will be helping us with the demo and some of the technical aspects of mobile testing today. Brief agenda, we're going to have David go over the survey results, mobile emulators versus real devices, and how people choose and decide to test on which kinds of device. Jack will be introducing automated testing with real devices on Sauce Labs, give some information on the latest capabilities we've added to our testing infrastructure. We'll then go into a real device testing demo and then save a bit of time for Q&A at the end of this morning. Just a reminder about Sauce Labs. We have a very scalable, secure cloud platform for fast, affordable, automated testing. Again, we focus on testing from an automated perspective and trying to run tests, as many tests as possible in parallel to help people reduce the amount of time they're spending on testing. We use pristine VMs and spin up a brand new VM for every test and then destroy it after that test so that you can be assured that your VMs are clean, they're secure, and there's no residual data remaining on those from, say, previous tests that might lead to false positives. We have over 80 mobile emulators and simulators and are now adding real devices to our test platform so that dev and QA folks can optimize their testing results across a variety of devices. And we have over 600 platform and OS combinations available, and we provide video playback, logs, metadata, et cetera, on demand after every test. With that introduction, I'd like to turn it over to David and have him discuss the results of his survey. David, go ahead.
And thanks for the introduction, Ken. So today we're going to chat a little bit about the survey that we had administered just recently, completed just a week or so ago, talking about how mobile app testing is being done today by the development and QA professionals. We can go on to the next slide, please. As we take a look at the methodology, it's important to understand that the primary research here was to go out and find out what QA and developers are doing in their labs today and how they're ensuring the application quality and what process they're going through choosing that process. We invited people from around the world to participate in this study, and we accepted participants of all roles and responsibilities within an organization. In the full report, not in today's slide, there are further descriptions of the demographics, but I can let you know that this was a fairly significant global survey that was administered, and we have participation from countries around the globe. Really strong participation from the Americas, Europe, and then good participation from Asia Pacific as well. We also saw a very good distribution of the companies that participated, so that we saw the small companies as well as the very large, so that we don't see in the data today something that may only appear to be for the very large or the very small, that this really is a combination of what we're seeing across the industry. And lastly, we know that testing professionals obviously always are responsible for, and somewhere in the process and release to be responsible for the quality of the application, but we know that in many agile and other development houses and processes, the developers ensure the quality either at unit level or participation in agile or even a DevOps type of an approach to releases. So we have participants from both sides of that house as well. We did have 153 participants partake in this result. And with that, let's go ahead and move right into the key results. And we'll go ahead to the next slide and talk about what we see here is that a very large percentage of the testing is being done in-house. And I do want to juxtapose this a little bit. If we go back to traditional application testing, there were many, many years, and it's still a continuing trend, that often app testing can be outsourced to either other countries or to houses that specify in app testing. Here we see, perhaps with the strategic importance of mobile devices, that most of the testing is being done in-house. In another study that Dimensional Research has performed, we found that there's a much higher percentage. Here it says 6% is done by another service provider, but we have seen that much higher than 6% are being farmed out for mobile app development. So while a company may, in fact, contract out for somebody to develop a mobile app, we see here that almost the entire market is taking the responsibility for ensuring application quality and performance in their very own house. And I think that this really does reinforce the strategic nature of mobile devices in the industry going forward. With that, next slide, please. We then asked a question, where is most of the testing done? And 72% said that it's done on physical, most is done on physical devices more than emulators. So this really gets to the point that the QA and the QA testing professionals, as well as the developers, are feeling the physical devices are important for them to understand, what the performance and the ramification of it is. We did ask them in the following slide, why is this testing being done on physical devices? What are you trying to really get at? And the number one reason that came out, and that and the number two reason significantly and statistically set themselves apart from the others. And what we really found out is that they are really trying to understand what and how will this application perform on the end device. So a lot of times, while we may think about functional testing and all of those tests that need to be done and validated, part of the testing and one of the real drivers to use a real device in testing is to know how will this perform on this OS stack with the standard memory, maybe with a couple other apps running in the background. How will this really perform? What will the experience that our users get? And that was the driving reason that people are using real devices. We also see in here visually verify the UI. And again, for the other reasons, I think people are very concerned with what the user's going to see. We certainly know that tolerance for mobile devices is a little less than other devices. And so we see the concern about how the user feels. Now, the second one here, visually verify the UI, this becomes perhaps a question of context. Are people choosing it because they necessarily need to have the physical device to see the UI, or are there tools and capabilities out there in the market today that people aren't aware of that would allow them to perform that equally well, perhaps not on a real device, maybe an emulator or maybe using a remote physical device, still to be determined. Next slide, please. Now, this particular slide indicates a question we asked by what processes are we determining what devices are being tested? What and how are you putting into your test poll? And I have to be honest, this was a bit of a surprise. We certainly expected what came up at 40% to be the market share. We expected that to be a very big piece of the pie chart, much greater than 40%. But what we do see is that on the right-hand side here at 53%, they are selecting the devices by which devices are connecting to their apps or the website. So we do see a significant maturity on this side that the companies are concerned about, the experience of the devices of the users that they have. What are those experiences? And in doing so, they have put in breadcrumbs and other information collectors to know the devices that are patronizing their applications and their sites. And they're using this to ensure that the devices that are tested through the quality process reflect what actual users are. So I think this is a bit of a surprise, but it also shows a bit, again, it reinforces how seriously companies are taking these mobile apps and how strategic it is to the company to ensure the experience and the quality of the application is good at the end. With that, let's go ahead and move on to it. In this particular question, we asked, how does your company test mobile apps? And it's important to understand that we allowed people to select more than one answer here. But what is stark is that 92% say that their process involves manual testing. What you could look at the other one and say only 8% of the market is able to automate their tests. And I think this is a good news, bad news. In the previous slide, we saw how important using a physical device was to ensure the performance as well as the UI. But in this case, we're seeing that at best 50% of the market is able to automate some of their tools. So when you start to think about many of us who've been around in the industry for a long time, old tests don't go away, right? The functional tests and continue to add up, as well as number of devices and OS combinations and platforms. The testing set, the test set, will continue to grow and increase. And so this, to me, while I was previously praising the industry for being very wise to understand the performance of the application and how strategic it is, on this side, it looks like maybe these houses are either behind the times or perhaps not aware of the different tools and solutions out there, because what we see here is just a huge reliance on manual testing, and that ends up becoming a problem as the greater number of tests start to occur. It usually results in two things: either one, slowing down time to market, or two, the requirement to hire an ever-increasing number of testers. We see even further down there at the bottom the smaller percentage that were part of the continuous improvement. So again, it seems the testing process is lagging many of the shops that use a CI type of an approach. So again, maturity on one side, but it looks a little here in the testing process that there's a maturity opportunity still there. And we'll go ahead to the next slide. So we asked them, why are we not testing today? Why are you not using automation and automated testing approach? And ironically, the top one is I don't have time to learn. And this always reminds me of an analogy or a joke I heard many years ago, which is I'm too busy drowning to learn how to swim. And if we take this, that they're really talking about, time is the number one. And we're talking a little bit about automated solutions that provide us coverage to be worth it, difficult to build and maintain. I think this comes in two phases. One is, again, it seems like a maturity needs to step in. We've learned this from the past and other traditional applications, that putting it off to tomorrow, you get to a point, as we were just discussing, the time to market suffers, and or you just have to hire an incredible amount of resources to test it to meet time to market. The second thing is it tends to indicate here that we may not have either the quality of the solution to the market that the testers really do need, or there remains some ignorance about what are the capabilities of test solutions out there today, what platforms are available, are they easy enough, can I automate stuff quickly and easier, or is it just my experience with what I might have tried a few years ago that's really leading me to this conclusion today. Next slide, please. This ends up being the final and last slide in what we're going to talk about today, but I will remind you that this is a subset of the larger report that you will have access to. And in this last slide, we find that 74%, almost 3/4 of the participants, said that they think manual testing is easier. And again, I think this gets into, I don't have time to learn, I've got to get this done, I just pick it up, punch the keys, do it manually. I think perhaps that is true. Maybe it is a little bit easier. It's not easy to learn. Another analogy that comes in is when we're young, it's far easier to walk wherever we want to go. And at some point, you go through the process to learn how to drive your car. and then you can get places faster. And as you get older, there's certainly the propensity to take a car or a bus or something else that's required from learning to get there, but you realize that this mode of transportation is a far faster way to get where you're going. And I think this is again harkens a little bit to the need of the maturity of both the testers as well as the solutions that may be at hand. There needs to be a way, they need to be aware that what the path they're on will not scale. And at the end of it, the business is going to suffer. You're either going to lose your competitive edge in getting products to market fast, or you're going to have to cut quality corners, which we know often bites people, or you end up having to hire far more testers and adding more staff to get your products on time and of a quality session. So with this approach, I do think there's an opportunity for the testing community to go out and survey the solutions that are out there and see if any of these perceptions can be changed and accelerate their time to market. Certainly we know automation has traditionally been the answer. With that, I encourage anyone here to ask any questions that they may have, either now or at the end of the presentation, and talk a little more about the study or the findings. And then, as Ken had alluded to earlier, please look for your email box. We will be sending out the final version of this report in the near future. Thanks again.
David, thank you so much. That's fantastic. Now I'll turn it over to Jack Moxon, our product manager, to talk about what's new with Sauce Labs Real Device Cloud.
Thank you, Ken. Very excited to be here with everyone today and announcing support for real devices on Sauce Labs. As many of you may know, we have been a leader in the mobile space for several years, both with our contribution to Appium, as well as our emulator product that has been on the market for several years. And we think that we're really completing that by offering real device testing. As David mentioned in our survey, there's a clear understanding by people in the market that you need to test on both emulators and real devices. It's very rare that someone wants to do purely on one or the other, and Sauce is very proud to be able to offer both to our customers to provide that complete solution. We've also got a DevOps integrated and optimized solution, and we also offer hundreds of each device type for our customers. On the next slide, we can talk a bit more about this in detail. So an important detail of our Real Device Cloud is that we're offering instant availability. So to work in a CI or continuous delivery workflow, it's very important that you be able to get access to the devices that you need instantaneously. And so if we're not able to provide that, then we're not really providing a solution that works with CI. And so by having hundreds of each device type, hundreds of each device, we're able to make sure that there's no reservation system. You don't have to wait in order to get access to an iPhone 6, let's say, if you need to test that today. The other thing that provides is the ability to run massively in parallel. So as many of you have probably seen with automated testing from the desktop side, it's very, very beneficial if you can spin up your tests and run them in parallel. It can reduce the time it takes to test by as much as 100. We also have custom CI integrations, so we have custom plugins for every single tool on the market, like Jenkins, Travis, Circle, Bamboo, TeamCity, you name it, we have a custom plugin. So whatever your workflow may be, our Real Device Cloud is going to integrate very smoothly with that. And we also are going to be able to provide mobile web, native and hybrid testing on real devices and emulators. You can use Selenium or Appium to use the real devices, and you can test on, many people have both native applications as well as mobile web that they need to test, and you'll be able to use Sauce Labs to do that. We've been leaders in the testing space for over 7 years at this point, and so we've learned quite a lot about what enterprises need in their solutions. So we have a few different enterprise features that we're very proud of that we'll be extending to real devices, including Sauce Connect, which is a secure tunnel that allows you to test pre-production apps, APIs, and backends. We also have support for single sign-on and the ability to provide team management. So if you have different administrative needs for different team members, that's all available in the Sauce platform. And finally, I think the most used and beloved feature that we have on Sauce Labs that exists on our mobile emulator side will also be available on real devices. So you'll be able to see videos and screenshots of your mobile tests on real devices. So that's very important for quickly remediating any issues that may occur. So you run a build, you might run 100 tests in that build. You can quickly surface the 3 that failed. You can then watch a video or look at the screenshot where that test failed, and it's very quick to get a fix in. Of course, you also have the complete Selenium logs and all other metadata involved as well. Abhijit is going to talk about that in his demo and show that in action, which will be great. So we made the announcement about our Real Device Cloud on September 8th. We'll be starting a public beta on September 30th. If you are interested in getting access to the public beta and running tests on real devices on Sauce Labs, you can sign up at the link below. Something that we're really excited about is the pricing for this offering. So as many of you may know, real device testing historically has been very expensive. Given some of the technological achievements we've been able to work on here at Sauce, we're able to offer at $449 per device per month for unlimited testing, which is an extremely competitive offering compared to how much it costs to build your own or to use some of the legacy tools in the market. So we're really excited about that. So I think with that, I think those are kind of the highlights and details of the Real Device Cloud, and I'll kick it back to Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Hey, a question came in before we transfer over to Abhijit about what's the most popular mobile test automation tool or framework that people should use?
It's a great question. So I think there's been a clear kind of consensus that Appium has emerged as the most popular mobile testing tool. It's interesting to see the growth of that over the years. Even just 2 years ago, when Appium first started, there was a number of different tools out in the marketplace, Calabash, KIF, a number of these different tools, and there was no consensus. One of the reasons that Sauce Labs has invested so heavily in Appium is that we saw, there was a lot of success on the Selenium side, and could we translate some of that success over to the mobile space? And so Appium is kind of founded on some of the same principles. For example, you can test both Android and iOS without having to have a separate code base. You also don't have to make any changes to your application code. So you're actually making tests on your application without any instrumentation or changes, so that you're testing what the user actually uses. So some of those things. So because of that, we've seen sort of an enormous growth with Appium. It's a fully open source project. We have lots of contributors contributing, so we're very excited to see that, and I think it sort of emerges the clear standard. The last thing I'll say about it and why I think it's so great is you're allowed to kind of use some of the same frameworks that you may use for your desktop web testing. So if you're familiar with JUnit or TestMG or any of the Selenium frameworks, those port very nicely to Appium. So it's a really smooth transition if you're just getting started with mobile automation.
Great.
So I'll kick it over to Abhijit to provide a demo of our real device offering.
Thank you so much, Jack, and hello everyone. Thanks for joining us on this introduction here. So we've heard a lot about real device and Sauce Labs. Why don't we see it in action now, right? So what I'm sharing with you at the moment is our Sauce Labs homepage, or as we call it, the jobs page. And what we have done in our new UI is segment out the different tests that you can run on Sauce Labs. So if you run a manual test, those tests will show up in the manual test column. If you run any tests, automated tests will show up in the automated segment. If you're running tests as part of a build, they'll be reflected in the build column here as well. And Sauce Labs provides you quick metric as to how the health, what the health with the build was and how it performed. But for today, we're going to be launching a simple script on our real devices, right? So here, I'm going to quickly show you the script. So we have 2 test cases here that will be running against the mobile web version of saucelabs.com. One test case is just fetching the URL. The second test case is clicking on the login button. Right. But the important piece is that we are pointing the script to run on the saucelabs.com, of course, and then we are setting up in our desired capabilities which devices we want to run these 2 test cases against, right? And today we'll be running it against 3 devices, which is Samsung Galaxy S5, Samsung Galaxy S4, and iPhone 6. Now, I could have easily executed the script as part of a Jenkins job or a Travis job or a Circle job. All the interaction with Soft Labs is API driven, right? But today we're just going to kick it off from our console for now. So let's get started here. So I'll launch my Maven build here with the test. I'll go to softlabs.com. And in just a second, 2 test cases will be launched against 3 devices. That's 6 tests or devices, 6 tests or jobs for Soft Labs, right? And as you see, all of those 6 tests or jobs launch in parallel. So now what you're really seeing is scalability in your testing and optimum parallelization. So if one test takes 20 seconds, within those 20 seconds, I'm able to provide that feature coverage across 3 different devices, right? And here we tried to test for 2 features, so within those 20 seconds to a minute, I'm able to test on those 3 devices right away. Another nifty feature about a real device offering is if I click into a particular test, I can see the live execution of the test as well, right? So here I'm seeing on a Samsung Galaxy S4, the Chrome browser booted up from pristine state, loads the mobile web version of softlabs.com and iterates through the logic of my test, right? Now once we go back, we'll also see certain tests finish, and what Jack alluded to is we package earlier is that we package our screenshots, the videos, and the logs into every test run, right? So if I just go back to a test that we ran a little bit earlier and click into it, I'll see those assets reflected in that particular test itself, right? So here we are seeing the step-by-step screenshots for each of the page limit executions that we did as part of the logic of the test. And then I can also click on the watch tab there and see the video of the entire test session, right? And you also have the logs there, which we have the Appium logs as well as the device log. In this case, since we are running on Android, we have the log catalog. And you can choose to download all of these assets from the metadata page itself, right? So either you can choose to download it manually, or you can programmatically fetch it using our REST API. The main reason that we are packaging these assets in this way is that once you run the test and you come across a certain issue and you want to communicate that to your team, or you can just copy the URL for that particular test and distribute it, right? And all the important information regarding that test will be reflected in that URL, right? And so you don't have to point out where the issues were. We are capturing those issues for you. And using the same sort of continuous integration setup that you may have on your end to execute Selenium scripts, now on different browser and OS combinations, now you can leverage the same continuous integration pipeline to run your automated functional tests against real devices as well, essentially achieving mobile continuous integration, which was sort of unheard of or is really a challenge currently, but we have now solved it with our mobile offering.
Abhijit, that was a cool demo. Some of the questions that people had is they had some concerns about there's a perception that testing on real devices is maybe slower than testing on emulators, but you just showed tests on real devices in real time, and those happen very quickly, right?
Absolutely. The unique feature about Soft Labs is that we boot up our real devices from a pristine state, and even though we booted up all our devices from a fresh state, you saw how quickly we boot them up, loaded the application, iterated through the logic. So there was absolutely no lag in test execution.
And so having 100 devices of each type means you can run parallel tests like this on demand at any time. You don't need a reservation.
Absolutely not. So right now, we just ran 2 test cases against 3 devices. Those were 6 separate tests. You may have a mobile test suite of 100 tests that you may want to run against all the 3 devices. That's 300 tests running in parallel. Sure, throw it at us.
Pretty. People want to know what language did you write your test script in?
In Java, and the framework I'm using is JUnit.
And they're asking what other languages do we support besides Java?
As Jack mentioned, Selenium and Appium, one of the biggest benefits of those automation frameworks is that you can leverage your existing dev skills to write an automated test suite in, right? So the WebDriver technology or the protocol that Selenium and Appium is built on supports any language of your choice: Java, C#, Python, Ruby, AngularJS, Node.js, anything, JavaScript. Yeah.
Great, that's interesting. So one of the benefits is that we now have emulators and simulators, and we have real devices. Jack, maybe you can take that question about how do you decide how to separate your tests between the two, and what should you look out for possibly when testing on real devices versus emulators?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are kind of a few things to keep in mind when you're making that decision. I think it's going to depend a lot on your organization, so I don't think there's necessarily one way to do it. Something that we've seen from a lot of our customers who have been using the beta is there's sort of a desire to use emulators in the kind of early stages. So developers might be running tests kind of constantly throughout the day on every commit. They might be running a suite of emulator tests. And that's kind of constantly going on throughout the day because emulators are a little bit more affordable and it's easier to run them in parallel. Later on, though, before a final deploy, you want to actually test against the real environment that your application is going to be run on, and that's very important to get like a clear sense of how is the device and some of the hardware actually going to interact with your application. And so folks usually want to do that towards the end of the testing cycle. So that's sort of an emerging best practice. It's not necessarily the only way to go about it, but that's kind of what we tend to be seeing. So you're using emulators kind of on those like every hourly commit, and then perhaps using real devices maybe before a daily deploy or something like that. It just depends on your organization.
So do you need, maybe this is best for you, Avijit, so do you need to write different tests to test on emulators versus real devices, or you can just reuse the same code time and time again?
Absolutely, you can reuse the same code. In my script, for example, we specified 3 devices in the desired capabilities. I could have easily included different emulators or simulator versions and run them against those versions as well in parallel with the real devices.
I think one of my favorite things about the way we've built the service is that if you have an emulator test running, it's almost literally changing one word. You're adding the word real device to your desired capabilities, and now all of a sudden a test that was running on an emulator is now running on a real device. It's as simple as that.
There's some questions about security. Specifically, how do you test apps, say, behind a firewall, and can you access data stores and databases and maybe information behind the firewall while testing their apps up on the SOS infrastructure?
Absolutely. Sauce Labs is a complete functional testing solution, and regardless of the application that you're testing, we make it easy for you to test it. And to test applications that reside behind the firewall, we have created a very secure, simple tool called Sauce Connect that creates sort of a connection between our Sauce Cloud and your internal environment and routes traffic through an encrypted tunnel with TLS. It's a TLS tunnel that has additional security built in and allows you to execute tests against your internal applications. And if you have further questions about the deployment of it, it's a very versatile tool. It'll adhere to any proxy and network configurations that your security and network team want to make it adhere to. So happy to work with you on those deployment scenarios as well.
Yeah, there's a question about, is it possible to test for web and web hybrid mobile apps and native apps, so the whole suite of apps?
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely. This is I think one of the most unique and cool features about our cloud, our real device cloud, is that not only can you test native applications, but you can do mobile web and hybrid apps. And to do so is very simple. So it's a matter of just changing your desired capabilities again. Instead of specifying a native application to download onto the device, you're simply pointing to a URL and writing your script just as you would for a native test. So it's very simple, and we're very proud to be one of the offerings that supports both.
Someone asked a question about what do we use to clean the devices at the end. The devices we have now are not rooted. They're standard devices that we just buy from the manufacturers. And what's the routine for cleaning a device after a test?
Yeah, so once the test is done, there is secret sauce involved on our end, and once the test is over, we shut down the device, we clean it up, and next time when you initiated a subsequent test run, you'll be presented with the device which is from a clean state. But not to get into too many details, it's secret sauce. But Jack, do you want?
Yeah, so if you're running a data test, your app is going to be, of course, uninstalled. That's never going to be shared between customers. All cache is going to be cleared if you're running a mobile web test, and device settings are going to be restored back to the initial state. So the phone will be completely pristine after each test run.
That's great. Abhijit, I think there's another question about running apps, is that where their application resides vis-a-vis our infrastructure. It's my application. Will my application be open on the Sauce Lab network? And it's only accessible over the WANs, right? So that's what Secure Connect is for.
Yes. Yes. So I think since you're talking about mobile testing, the question more sort of is relevant for mobile web tests. So I want to sort of create a differentiator as to how Sauce Labs, how you test native and hybrid applications versus mobile web applications on Sauce Labs, right? Within a mobile web application, all you need to do within your script is point the URL of that particular app as the logic of the test. When you're testing a native or a hybrid application, you send us the package, the .apk or the .app package that Sauce devices or emulators and simulators download onto themselves to run the logic. So there is a difference in the flow. But yes, if you have an internal application, a mobile web application behind the firewall, Sauce Connect can simplify that connection for you to run it on Sauce.
Right. There's a question about pricing here, Jack, and people are wondering, during the beta period, we have a fixed price per device. It could be any device, any combination of devices. That dollar per month per device is any combination of devices that you pay for.
That's right, yes. So it's similar to our emulator solution. It's completely dynamic. So today you could use your device concurrency count to run on iPhones. Tomorrow it could be Galaxy S5. It's completely dynamic that you can choose and run them whenever you want.
So someone asked a question about doing pricing based on usage as opposed to device, but during the beta period, we're only doing it per device.
Yeah, it's completely unlimited usage during this beta period, so you'll be able to run as many tests as you want on the devices that you have access to.
We're getting a number of questions about testing hardware features, primarily network connectivity, Wi-Fi, cellular access. What's our capabilities during the beta period on those?
So at the moment, you can toggle with the Wi-Fi connectivity on our real devices. Subsequently, moving forward, we're looking to add additional functionality such as vendor network throttling and toggling, as well as Bluetooth and other things. But those are something that we're exploring. But as in the beta, you'll be able to set device profiles and toggle between Wi-Fi, especially in regards to the connectivity question.
Terrific. Now, Sauce Labs, we're a full-service company. We have professional services. We have training capabilities available. We have a lot of online training. People are asking questions about where do they go to get maybe videos or access to more online training about Appium.
Yeah, so on our Sauce Labs documentation, and Jack can definitely get into it a lot more, we have a robust Appium documentation that goes into how you can set up your Appium test suites in different languages. And we also have an Appium bootcamp that's available. Jack, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, as Abhijit said, we have our docs at docs.saucelabs.com, lots of details about running Appium as well as desktop testing as well on our doc site. You can also visit our resources page on Sauce Lab for more information.
Terrific. Well, I think that kind of has gone through all the questions we've gotten today. On the screen is a resources slide, lets you know where to get more information about our data sheet on mobile testing. There's a Sauce blog that then points you to more information about the real devices we've made available. Certainly on saucelabs.com/docs, there's a lot of information about Appium and Selenium, how to get started, how to get testing started. There's the Appium Bootcamp, which is a wonderful publication we put together, and we'll be developing some videos as well, illustrating how to get started testing with Appium. At the bottom, finally, there is a sign up to be part of the Real Device Cloud. You sign that up, we'll then get back to you and let you know how people can gain access to that. I'd like to thank David Gehringer for all of his help and support from Dimensional Research for doing the survey for us. Jack and Emma-Jeet, thanks for your time. And this concludes our webinar for today. Again, we've recorded this, and we'll be sending out links to the recording as well as copies of David's research to all those that registered for this event. Again, thanks very much, and goodbye.